Hey everybody, it's Evan from devascend.com. And in this video, we're going to go over loops inside of Svelte. So what do we use loops in Svelte for? Well, say we had an array of data and we wanted to loop through each item in the array and then output corresponding HTML elements for each item in our array. And if honestly that sounds confusing, don't worry. The best way to learn this is just by seeing it in action. So let's go ahead and get started. Now, if you still have code in your script and main tag from last video and you're following along, go ahead and remove those and make sure you have an empty script tag and an empty main tag. Now I'm just going to create an array of things. Let's call this fruits, and this is going to be array, so we're going to use the brackets here. And now this is going to be array of objects, so let's go ahead and create our first one. I'm going to have the name be set to apple, and then we're going to say the color of the fruit is red, and the amount of the fruit is going to be, let's just say 5. And for the last property, we're going to give it an ID, and I'm just going to have the ID for this be 1. Now I'm going to go ahead and add 2 more objects in our array here. All right, and now we have 3 objects in our array. If you want to go ahead and copy this, if you're following along, you can go to the GitHub repo. I'll have a link in the description down below if you want to go ahead and copy it. If you're creating your own objects, just remember you're going to want to have an ID property or some unique identifier that will only exist in that object. So for example, the ID 1 here, there's never going to be another ID of 1. It's always going to be ID 1, 2, 3. These are all unique properties. Now let's go ahead and go to our main tags here. Let's go ahead and create a div. Now I'm going to go ahead and give this div a class, and we're going to call the class card. And then I'm going to add some styling to our card real quick. So we're going to have some padding. Let's just say 8 pixels, border radius 20 pixels, and border 2 pixel solid gray. Oh, and I forgot to add a dot here to signify that it's a class. Now in our card here, we're going to add a couple things. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put an h5 tag. Inside our h5 tag, we're going to put 2 curly braces, and then we're going to put fruits position 0, and then we're going to access the name property. So that's going to access the first item in our array, which is our apple, and it's going to access the name property. So it's going to print out apple here. Now let's go ahead and add some p tags. So now we have our card with our fruit name and color. I'm going to go ahead and save this and see what it looks like in our browser. All right, so we're going to notice this is a little bit smaller than we actually would want. So let's go ahead and make that a little bit wider. So I'm going to say min width 400 pixels, and now we can see now it's a little bit wider, looks more like a card. I'm actually going to make the website look a little bit bigger just so we can see what's going on here. And I'm actually going to reduce our margins for our h5 and p tags here. We're just going to give them 4 pixels on the top and bottom and 0 pixels on the left and right. All right, that looks a little bit better. So now we did that for the first fruit, and of course we could just copy this, paste these here, and then we can change the numbers here. And we can see now we have 3 different fruits, but this is a little bit redundant. And so in Svelte, we actually have a shorthand, so we can actually loop through our array instead of just writing all of these out by hand. So I'm going to go ahead and remove these here. And now for this last part, I'm going to go ahead and just cut this, but I'm going to still save it because we're going to repaste it later. And now inside our main tag, we're actually going to type hashtag each, and then we're going to say the name of our array, which is fruits. And then we're going to say as, and now we need a variable name for one specific fruit in our fruits. So let's just go ahead and call that fruit. And now you can kind of think of this as a tag. So with a tag, we're actually going to need a closing tag. So to close that tag, let's go ahead and type /each. And now this is basically going to cycle through each one of our items in our array, and it's going to basically paste what we have inside of here over and over for every element in our array. So inside here, we're almost basically creating a template. So let's go ahead and paste that code we had before, which is our card. And now instead of our arrays, we're actually just going to do fruit.name and fruit.color. And one last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add a margin top of, let's say 8 pixels for each card, just so it looks cleaner. And if we go back to our website, now we're going to see we have apple red, banana yellow, and grape purple. And so now you can see when we go to our main tag here, we see that it basically printed out 3 of our card divs here based off of the template that we gave it. And for every fruit in our fruits array, it used our template and appended it to our HTML here. So now we need to make sure that all of our elements that we're pasting here in our our each loop has a unique key or identifier, and Svelte basically uses this key to determine which element in our DOM is related to which element in our array. So this allows Svelte to make that connection between our DOM element and the elements that it's based off of in our array. So to add a key to each one of our cards here, all we have to do is do parentheses here, and we can do fruit.id. And you have to remember that each one of those keys has to be unique. And remember, we created the ID property for each one of our elements in our array up here. And these are always going to be unique. So you're never going to see multiple of the same ID in our array. So this might seem negligible right now, but I promise this is going to be something that you would use commonly. It's a good practice to use commonly in Svelte. It makes everything cleaner and it keeps yourself organized, and it prevents you from writing redundant code. Because say if your array had like 100 elements in it, you're not going to want to type out this card thing about 100 times like this, because it's just going to clutter up your code. So this is a nice way to keep everything clean and organized inside your code, and it's a great way to just display a lot of data. Now there's one more thing we can actually do in our each loop here. I'm going to type in curly braces here, and now we're going to say colon else. And now below here, if I add some p tags, and I can say there is no fruit in our fruit array. Now if our array is ever empty, instead of displaying each one of these cards, it's just going to display this p tag here. So if we go to our website, we're going to see that it's still displaying each of our fruit, because of course our fruits array is populated here. However, if I were to remove all of our elements in our fruit array and I just left it an empty array, now if we go back to our Svelte app, it's going to say there are no fruit in our fruit array. So basically this is just saying if there's nothing in our array, let's go ahead and output whatever we put below here. And of course, if you wanted to add multiple lines of code, you can do that. It'll work the same way. It basically just says output whatever we put below our else tag here. Anyway, that's going to do it for this video. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments down below, or you could join the devascend Discord server, and either myself or someone else will be able to help you out there. Anyway, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.